All right, so I think the recording has started. Let me see. So let's continue from here. We are on data aggregation and descriptive statistics. And Evelyn said descriptive data aggregation is gathering data from multiple sources. All right, so we are still on data aggregation and descriptive statistics. So with the data aggregation, we are looking at gathering data from multiple sources. This from Evelyn. And Kingsley also said the descriptive statistics is knowing how to describe and summarize your data. So to combine or add both of their explanation or their suggestion, understanding on data aggregation and descriptive statistics, then before we can gather data from any other source or from any source, we should have three things in mind. Now, the moment we are able to access the data, like we have here, we have this data set with 3 columns on 22 rows. So now, where was this data gathered or generated from? We got this data from our file directory. That's from our local machine. Now, how can we describe and summarize this data? In what way? We can do this in three things using descriptive statistics. The first one is measures of frequency. We've already treated this under basic statistics. So we are building upon that fundamental knowledge to do something different. The second thing to look at is our measures of central tendency. We are going to look into each of them, measures of central tendency. And the third one is our measures of variability. Measures of variability. All this has a way of establishing them on a data to describe and summarize your data. So now the question is, what is descriptive statistics? Now, descriptive statistics are a set of measures that are used to describe and summarize your data, simply as that. So descriptive statistics is used to, one, describe, and two, to summarize your data. To summarize your data or to describe your data, we have something to talk about here called uni. Okay, let me first use these columns, for example, before I bring in that technical term. Now, to summarize this data, we can either use the male column only. Maybe I want to find the total number of the males right over here. So as we all know, I can use the sum function here to know my total number here. I can use the sum to know my total number here. Okay. So now in summary or in description, I'm having 262 over here as my sum. So statistically, we can say we have 226 males over here. So if I'm to only consider one column like this, it is called univariate analysis. Uni means one, univariate analysis. So the question is, what is univariate analysis? Since uni means one, univariate analysis is simply analyzing a single column. So you analyzing a single column. The next thing is, okay, I want to know how many males here against the females. Or I want to know how many males here have engineering background. So I'm going to pick the male column against the qualification column. So in hello. Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. I realized I lost my connection. Where did I get to before my internet went off? So I can continue from there.
Are you explaining the univariate analysis?
All right. So
yes.
In some cases, you hear of bivariate analysis. So the bi means two. So analyzing two columns. Two columns. Two columns over here. But always you are going to hear of either analyzing one or two or more columns, which is multivariate analysis. Multivariate analysis. So the multi means more than two columns. Now, establishing any of these types is very critical and essential in data interpretation and describing data or summarizing your data. So first, let's look at the types. So the types, we are going to look at the measures of frequency. When do I need to establish or perform measures of frequency on my data? So using these columns for an example, if we pick column B or the male column, if we want to establish measures of frequency over here, we are going to look at the number of times a specific or particular value repeats itself. So during our GHS days, we used to do this tally table. Come in. This tally table. So you have this 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you use the last one to cross this one, making 5, right? So you count how frequent maybe 17 is or 17s are over here. So over here, if we look at this, let's try and figure out the number that appears the most over here. So I can see 2 here, I can see 2 here, and I think 2, I can see just 2, and I can see 30, okay, just 1, 0, okay, so 0, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think the zeros here are 4. So if we are talking about measures of frequency over here, and if we are to take this column for example, we are looking at the number of times the zeros can be counted. or the total number of zeros over here, and it's 4 over here. Looking at the next type of descriptive statistics is central tendency. This is where a lot of confusion sets in. So always, to understand how to perform or establish this type of descriptive statistics is very, 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 very key in any project you do or any statistical analysis you do, even to data science level or to machine learning level. Now, with the descriptive, with the central tendency, we are going to look at 3 additional things over here. First, you look at how often a number or a value repeats itself over time in your data set. That's your measures of frequency, how frequent the number is seen or appears here. Okay, now I have realized that the zeros are many than any other value or number here. Okay, then what next? What do I do? What do I need to establish? And what is even the meaning, the statistical understanding of the zeros over here? So please, let's take note of that question. We are all going to find out what this zero mean over here. Why is it appearing the most and its importance on our data and how we are going to interpret it. So let's take note of that. The second thing is measuring our central tendency. And measuring our central tendency, what does it mean? So the central tendency, what it means is that it helps us to know where our center point of data lies. So now we are going to look at our center point of data. So the center point of our data. But how do we even identify the center of this data? And how do we describe what is being found at the left or being found at the right? And what is its statistical interpretation to our data? I'll place a minute. Hello. Yeah, hello. Hello. Please, can you hear me? Please, can you hear me? Hello. 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 Please, can you hear me? Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Please, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. So sorry. I traveled to Winneba. So the internet. All right. So over here, we are looking at the center point of our data. That's the measures of central tendency. How do we find the center of the data? So if we take either the male column for an example, which number is the center? And always to find the central tendency, we are only looking at a single, please, let's take note of this keyword, single value. So this single value, maybe for example, 5, right? just a single value is going to give us the center point of our data. And after we've been able to identify this center value, that's when we are going to interpret our data. So after we've been able to understand and know what is happening at the center of the data, then the role of measures of spread or measures of variability comes to play. So let's understand when and where each of the types of descriptive statistics is needed. It's needed. So one, I said the measures of frequency is needed first to know or to be able to tell how frequent a specific number repeats itself or is being found the most in our data. Also, to be able to interpret our data with statistical inferences, we look at our central tendency. What does it mean? We are only looking at the center of our data, what is happening at the center of our data. And after we have been able to identify what is happening at the center of this data, always there should be just a single value or a single point of data that will be or that will serve as the center. So now we've been able to identify this single value as 5. That's just an example. And after this 5 or the point over here was identified or is identified, now we look at what is actually happening at the left side of the point or the 5, that is the center, and what is happening at the right side of the center. So knowing what is happening at the right and knowing what is happening at the left side and at the right hello 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 please, am I audible?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, please. Please,
Hello.
where did I get to that I lost my connection? So,
Hello.
yeah, hello. Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Where did I get to before I lost my connection?
Yeah.
Please, where did I get to? So I can take it from there. Hello. Hello. Please, am I audible?
Hello.
Yeah. I'm asking where did I get to before I lost my connection? So let me take it from how to establish measures of variability. So I said first, knowing when a number repeats itself, that's when you can bring in your measures of frequency, how frequent a number appears. After that, what do you need to do next? You have to look at what is happening at the center of your data. It has a meaning to what we are going to do, but please let's get it clear and understand it better, as going forward it is going to confuse us. So always the hello. Hello. Yeah, hello. Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. So knowing what is happening at the center of your data, you always look for a single value. If it is numbers or quantitative data like this, we are only going to look at a single value. And this single value is going to speak to us statistically, mathematically. We are going to look at how it speaks. And after we've been able to identify that number, or if it is data point, for example, when we search for either a curve, we search for a curve, data central tendency. So central tendency, for example, here, tendency over here. I just want us to see, okay, a point over here. All right, so let's pick one of these images. I think our video will end in 10 minutes. So, all right. So now when we pick this plot, okay, let's use this point. Because I want everyone to understand it's just simple. Because if I take you there, many of us will get confused. All right, so now when we take this mode over here, we are not looking at the mode, we are just looking at the point over here. So if we are to use this point as our center, now the question is, what is happening at the left and what is happening at the right is what we are going to look at. So looking at what is happening at the left of the center and at the right of the center is when your measures of variability or measures of spread comes to play, or you establish your measures of variability over here. And the measures of variability, what does it even mean? What it means simply is looking at how spread out your data points are from the center. I don't want to say from the mean, right? I'm just using center so we all get the clear idea. From the center of our data, and from each data point. So how spread out your data points are from the center. So this one, right? You can make it off because I use your over here, right? So let me use of our data and how far and from the center of our data and from each data point. So when we take this again, so we can see that if this is the middle of the data, then we are looking at, look at where this data is and how far is this data from this data. And it has statistical interpretation we are going to look into. So please, let's get the understanding clear as white as snow before we get confused when we are to perform this statistical analysis. Now, if we come back to the measures of central tendency, we are going to look at three things. Measures of central tendency. Measures of central tendency. Now, to look at the center, you always have to look for something called mean. You look for this mode and you look for your median. This is going to get confusing as we continue. Now, whenever we are thinking of measures of spread, how our data points are spread from each other and from the center, we look at three things as well. So the first thing to look at is our range. The second thing to look at is our standard deviation. So treating it like some of us do not have mathematical background, right? So standard deviation, okay, so deviation. And the last thing is our variance. So the question is, when do I need my mean? When do I need my mode? And when do I need my median? When do I need the range, the standard deviation, and the variance? How useful is each of them on our data points? So now, knowing your central tendency, that's your average. So this mean we always find the mean, or we always know our mean by finding our average number, or our average value. So let me leave it as average. So considering the rest of the data, you then establish these three. So always, before you come and establish measures of spread, how spread the data points are, you first look for your mean or your average. And the average is giving us a single value of our data as our center. Now, this median sometimes can give us a single value, or sometimes it can give us two values. And what do? We multiply them. We add them. You add them to get a single value as your what? Your mean back. So taking them one at a time. First, let's look at our measures of frequency. That one, we will leave it aside and come to our measures of central tendency. So what we are going to do now is we are going to look for our mean. We want to look at what is happening at the center of the female column. Now we find the mean by finding our average. So now we are getting our average as 7.38. So, oh, what is that? So 7.38 over here, of which we can convert this 8 to be 7.4 approximately. So let's take it as 7.4 over here. And here, what are we looking at? This is giving us qualification.